Hey guys, editing Chell here. Just wanted to give you guys a quick trigger warning for this episode. It does contain some sensitive topics. We do discuss a personal and emotional journey, including different family dynamics, bodily harm, cultural experiences that some may find intense or challenging. So if at any point you feel uncomfortable, please take care of yourself by pausing and stepping away as needed. A lot of this happens around minute 47 slash minute 55, so that whole section can be really intense. So just wanted to call that out for you guys in case it is too much.
Hey guys, welcome back to HeartCore. I'm Chell coming at you from Australia. Miko's on the other side of the world, and we have a special guest today, Manny, coming at us from Nueva Yorka. All right, today we are obviously talking about our guest and her human design, but I'm going to pass the mic off to Miko to give us a little bit more insight into that.
Hi everyone, nice to be here. Nice to have you here, Celestina and Manny. And yeah, I'm very excited to have this episode where we're three people this time. So we are going to be talking about the journey that Manny has gone through with human design. A lot has happened since her first reading, and we would like to dive into that a little deeper. Even her birth time has changed. So we will take a look at that as well. Because the first reading we did was with one birth time, and now we have another one due to her birth certificate coming in. Not that much has changed, but this is also going to show you how important it is to really have the accurate birth time. If you were thinking that, okay, maybe more or less 1 or 2 or 3 p.m., a lot can change in a very, very short time. In this case, not that much changes, even though it seems to have caused a bit of a personality crisis on Manny's end with Pisces rising instead of Aquarius rising. But that's life. It's always exciting. It's always interesting to dive into new and different aspects of who we are. And that also shows that we shouldn't put all our eggs in the astrology or human design basket. So really trust your own instincts more than anything else, and use these tools, as supportive elements, but don't identify yourself with them 100%. Your intuition is more important than anything else. Okay, Manny, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello guys. Thank you guys for having me. I feel like with the personality crisis, I don't really know what to tell you about myself anymore. I've only had 12 hours to sit with it. But a bit about me. So I am from New York, originally from Atlanta, Georgia. I am currently a creative strategist, so I work with brands and creatives to really hone in on kind of understanding who they are fundamentally, kind of helping them go through this layer of like really kind of taking them back to childhood, depacking and decluttering all of the stories and narratives and perspectives that we've kind of told ourselves throughout our whole journey getting to where we are at right now, with the whole point of showing people how in the past they've gotten unblocked or blocked, and really just helping them kind of establish a baseline of who they are so that that can be their inner compass, as well as kind of being able to shape the foundation of how they kind of show up in the world, both within their brand, within their marketing, as well as online and social media. A lot of the work that I do is really around identity work and the importance of getting back to your fundamental truth, as well as, of course, if being a Scorpio as I am, really all about the alchemy of the process of really understanding that you had to go through those pains or those trials or those challenges so that it could set you up for this. And also kind of showing them a little, like zooming out and showing them in those moments where you're thinking the world is ending, look what happened afterwards. And it really helps them kind of reshift their perspective, not just in the past, but how they kind of approach problems or conflict or kind of insecurities or doubts that may have in the past, kind of put them in a path of going for the first thing that they see rather than sitting back and leading from a place of trust and faith. A lot of my work has to do with that as well. A lot with that, and a lot of really helping people also cultivate and come into their own creative process, and really allowing them to put down all the barriers and thoughts that we have around, if I do this, then X, Y, and Z is going to happen, or everyone else is doing this, I have to go. Like really helping them understand that there's not a sense of urgency that's being placed on you. It's being self-imposed most of the time, and really helping them come in that place of inner knowing and having being, and as Mika says, really leading with your intuition. That's a lot of the work that I do. I think I see brands as vehicles for self-discovery and transformation, and I believe that it is our purpose in life to help one another in the advancement of our society, and really focusing on how it is I can show up to be a better human and to take on that personal responsibility for all of it, right? For my shadow, for my light, for how I interact in the world. And so I think brands are positioned in the place to be able to start really changing the narrative. And I think that's super important right now. As you can see, we're in a very hyper consumerism, attention grabbing economy, and a lot of people are disconnected. And I think brands can really do a very big service on their end in kind of helping us snap out of these automatic loops that we're in and cycles of escapism and procrastination, and really allow them to start forming a bond with the products that they buy and the community that they're intending to build. So, yeah.
Dude,
And
I
that is
don't know your design at all, and I'm just so excited to dive more
Oh,
in based off of
yay!
just what your answer was.
Oh,
Miko,
thank
I get it
you.
now. I get it. She speaks so highly of you, so I
Oh,
totally
I
understand
love
now.
Miko. She's amazing. Thank you.
And that is also how we met, because this is what Manny has done for me, and I love the work that she has created. She really gave opportunity the voice that I was looking for. So it was all inside of me. I was already working on it, but I'm not very good at marketing myself, and she was able to really provide the right kind of language for opportunity. So if you do need someone, I would highly recommend working with her to find your own voice. And yeah, we're going to see what the chart looks like from Manny.
It'll be fun. Should I like give a little bit of
For the
like background around me, like for the audience?
yes, happy to.
Let's see. I guess some things to just know. I'm the eldest daughter of eight, all girls, one boy. First generation American, parents are from Somalia. Grew up extremely religious, but I don't conform to people telling me what to do until I reach my own understanding and relationship to it. I'm very creative, love, love, love music. I love writing, and I'm a big softie and lover girl. Okay, that's it.
And you spilled ice cream on
Oh
Usher's
yeah,
shoes.
I did. I forgot about
I love that
that.
fun fact about you.
What is this fun
This is
fact? I
one of
need more. I need more around it.
So basically, I think it was like junior year of college. I had just finished my finals, and my friend and I went to the mall to go get ice cream. It was during the day, like Tuesday at like at 3 p.m. And it was a brand new mall, so it was a lot of developers kind of just selling the storefronts to people. And one of the guys was Usher, and I was getting ice cream, and I just was like, "Is that him?" Like, he was so short. That's why I didn't think it was him. Like, tiny man. Like 5'6", 5'7". So I was like, no way. But he has the head. And so then I saw this lady run up to him and screaming, "Oh my God." And I was like, "Friend, let's go." And then I went over, he was super nice. And I went to like lean in for a hug so that we can take a picture. And then my ice cream went onto his shoes, which were already pretty ugly. I think that was the first thing I noticed that confirmed. I was like, I think he's a celebrity because it looks very gaudy and not cute. So it's him. And I spilled ice cream on it, and he was like, "I don't even like these shoes anyways." I was like, I knew it. It's fine. I did you a favor.
Oh my
So
God.
that
So
was
yeah,
my
this
Usher
was in her
story.
CV. This was in her CV, and this is one of the reasons why I was like, okay, with her, I want to work with her because it's different. And she was also mentioning Aquarius rising, actually. So I love that. And I was like, okay, I do human design. I'm into astrology and planetary positions. So yeah, this is another reason, because Manny is extremely open minded, even with all of her background that is actually normally often pushing people to be more closed minded. So we will see in her design why that may be. But yeah, you have so many different facets about you, and you're open to discovering and understanding, and that is so important for someone that works with brands, who's able to really put themselves into the shoes of the individuals who are owning the brand, who really want their identity to come out. And I feel like a lot of people that are into marketing, they are not able to do that. They still try to push through their opinion and what they believe the brand should look like. And this is something that I really appreciate a lot about you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It is a little hard to kind of, it's really interesting that you say that I'm so open. I will also say there's points of me that is a little bit kind of fixed. I think once I reach that part and I'm like, this is the way I'm going to do it. I think in working with my clients, something that I've had to really let go of was that process that I've been very conditioned to do of like, this is a pain point, and you do this, then you do this, and allow it to really flow. I think in allowing that, it's also, again, raising my alarm for my type A personality and be like, we're not meeting the deadlines. But I think it's allowed me to also kind of go on this journey with my clients and be able to, as you said, Miko, beautifully, that to really step into their experience and see kind of their life and the brand that they want to create through their lens, and really work with them to not only build that but then also build up that muscle of expressing it. I think that also gives me strength and confidence to do it myself. So it's a very like symbiotic, is that the right term? I should know this, like, yeah, symbiotic relationship. I was a bio major. That's really sad. Not useful anymore.
We all understand what you were after. So, Celestina, would you like to see what, or explain what you see in her chart for now, and with what you've heard until now?
Yeah, so we have a 5-1 emotional generator with an undefined head, an ajna connected to the throat, a defined G center connected to the sacral center, an open ego center, an undefined splenic center. However, there's a lot of activity happening in the spleen, and then the root connected to the defined emotional center. So, yeah, dude, you're a triple split. Tell me how that feels. We can probably dive into that a little bit later, but that's really interesting to me at least. So, yeah, tell me a little bit about the. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say all it is just so many voices. It's just a
Yeah.
bunch of voices, and it's like for a really long time, there was definitely like one that was dominant, but then I feel like as I've gone more deeper into my spiritual practice and really learning how to listen and connect with my body, the voices have started to distinguish themselves, so I can tell which is which now. And when they aren't clear, I'm like, meditate, or like something's up, or like what's going on, or take a step back. At first, it was like I thought I was crazy, but my mom also talks to herself a lot too, so I just thought that was normal. So when Miko said triple threat, triple split, it was really funny because I was like, I knew there were different voices that were talking to me. So making a decision was really hard.
I like the mechanisms that you have to like get through that though, and I think that that probably does take a lot of self insight, right? And like quiet time with yourself to be able to have those insights and determine what part of you is dominant in that instant, and if that's the part of you that should be making that decision. So that's really cool that you're able to kind of like hone in on that.
Yeah, so I'll take some practice. Sometimes I'm like, was that the heart? I'm like, nope, it was not. And then I'll make a decision. I'm like, whoa, I should have sat on it. I should have waited.
Okay, so as we have mentioned at the beginning, we can see that there are two charts that I'm switching back and forth between. If I go very fast, maybe you can see the difference in the gate being defined. So we're looking at gate 57. If you're watching, if you're here listening, then I'm telling you we're looking at gate 57 and gate 32. These are the two that change from her unconscious moon, going from gate 57.6, and that's a line which is very easily changeable because it's the last line, and the moon is then entering into the 32.1. So that is one of the things that is changing. I didn't go as deep as color, tones, and bases. So if you look at the sun signs and the earth signs and the north nodes and south nodes, in Jovian Archive, it will show you the color tones and bases as well. And I didn't look if those change. I only focused on the lines, and the only thing that is changing from the lines or from the gates aspect is this one, the unconscious moon. The line is also changing in her conscious moon. So if you look at 19.5, you will see that this is now 19.5 and before it was 19.4. So because her birth time changed from 1320 before, that was the time that we went by during her reading, and it now is 1455, as Manny had explained. So these are the only two things that are changing in the gates and lines. However, because those variables are based on the color tones and bases of the sun and the earth and the north and south nodes, there is a bit of a shift here. So before, Manny was a quad right, which it's spoken of a lot in the human design community to be a quad left or a quad right. And that is what it means. When you're a quad right, you have a lot of new type of energy. So quad left is known to be a very old type of energy where you're still very structured, very old school, I would say, in a lot of ways. And quad right is someone that is shifting towards a different direction where you're more receptive, you're less active as the quad left would be. The quad left is a very active, very structured, very mind-oriented individual, and the quad right is someone that is more receptive. You are someone that needs to be asked to share things, and there is just a lot of energy which is more laid back in nature. So for many, it is changing to PLR-DLR. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. It can be very confusing, but we are going to get into that a little deeper in a little bit. I first wanted to focus on what we see in the chart just looking at it. We're looking at the advanced section. You can see that she had taste in her vision, and now she has thirst and hot and smell. So she used to be a closed taste and she had inner vision. Now she is these things. So what we see here is, as Celestina has already mentioned, we see a emotional generator. So through the triple split, this is an individual who really needs to wait for clarity. She already needs to do that because she is an emotional generator, but she needs to do it triple as much, I would say. Okay, that may be over-exaggerated, but it can seem to her that way, that she really needs a lot more time than even an emotional generator. So if you were a single definition emotional generator, the clarity may come faster for you. When you are a triple split emotional generator, the clarity takes even longer. So as Manny as described, there are these three voices in her head, or maybe even more, who knows? But it does feel split. And the clarity only comes through her processing this information little by little, because you can see here if you're watching, the ajna and the throat are connected. However, they're unconsciously connected. So this is again an aspect that she may not have conscious awareness of. We have the G center and the sacral being connected by the 214 channel. So she has this inner drive. This is consciously connected. It's also part of her conscious earth, the second gate. So she's aware of this energy, the sacral energy, and the G center energy. So she may have this, I know where I want to go, and that's the direction I take. I don't know if you're aware of this with your siblings as well, being the eldest. So you were probably someone who was more of like the conductor of the train. So this is most definitely this channel. You of course also have the generator energy. You have this consistent life force energy if you're doing something that satisfies you. So this is a very big thing with generators. They have the definition, the defined sacral. When they are consciously defined, they are aware of it more. They may need less time to become aware of it. And they have this life force energy that, as a train does, it just keeps going, but it can only do that when they're doing things that satisfy her. And you will see that with her music, which I feel like I really want to add a section of her music, of her set that she's shared with me into this podcast. We are going to add this at the end of this episode so you can listen to at least part of it. I don't know how much I can share, but I really want to add some of it. I love it so much. So, and you can see that when she's doing her music, she just keeps going, she keeps going like a train does, and it just feels right to her. Then we have her root and her emotional solar plexus defined. So here is also another challenge for her. I don't like to use the word problem because I believe that everything in life can be seen as a warrior instead of a problem. Like for me, challenge just sounds so much better. But you can see that she has the 49 unconsciously defined and she's got the 19th gate consciously defined. So for an emotional being, you should always, or generally your inner authority, you should always check the channel and the gates. What is defining your centers? Because you can have a conscious awareness of this center and it will take you a little less, potentially a little less time than an unconsciously defined inner authority to really grasp what that means for you. So for Manny, because she's also a Scorpio, she really loves this transformation. She loves to dive deep into the shadows and to really understand what has brought her to where she is right now. And this is also what we could see in the last year of, or not even a year, 9 months maybe?
So for me, it's been like, yeah, definitely a year and a half, but like 3 years worth of just turnover. That's just the best way to explain it. Like constant peeling, like lose this, lose that. It was just, yeah, I feel like I'm coming out of the tunnel at this part, but it feels like I keep going in and out of the tunnel. That's just how the past 3 years have been.
Dude, you're in the midst of your Saturn return too. So I
I
feel
know.
like you're like, I feel it.
It hurts. And it's in my first house. Like, it's all about me. They're like, these are the consequences of your actions. I was like, oh, they've all caught up. All of the decisions I made without listening, without waiting for that response, that clarity were presented to me.
Yeah. So this is just part of your process that it took time for you to really get to understand your inner authority, get to understand that triple split. And yeah, to work through all of this for the last 3 years, it's of course a continued journey. I can't really say when it's going to be over. I feel like this is just something that once you start to dive deep into yourself, it just doesn't stop. And you keep peeling, and it is a very, very tough and hard journey. But in my opinion, it's so worth it. And I wouldn't want to change it for the world. I always want to keep peeling. And I'm sure you do too. So this is a little bit of what we can see in your chart and also the experience you've shared with me. Do you want to share a little bit about the major points that for you were a game changer when you came to human design? Because you've already been interested in astrology, but what really
Hmm.
was the game changer with human design?
Honestly, I think it was understanding really the whole inner authority, and really understanding that I have to wait for that. I think when we had talked last time, we had talked through how I ride an emotional wave, and then it's at the end of that wave in which I should make my decision. I make them at my eye. I feel on top of the world. I feel like I got it. I'm a genius. And then I do it, and then I either get hit with something or I realize I should have waited. Like I actually, there's more information coming. I think the biggest thing that in our reading that has gone shown me is that I'm supposed to be laid back, or like not laid back, I guess laid back, but more like receptive, or more not. I think you highlighted the drive part. The drive part is very strong in me, and I'm a very active go, go, go person to the point where I always burn myself out. I think understanding how to better manage that as it relates to decision making too, because I think that's where I put a lot of pressure on myself, was super helpful. And I think also even talking through the root as well as the solar plexus, right? And how that's the tribal aspect and the touch and the lashing out. And I'm like, yes, I do have my father's rage. Okay, I knew it. Like, and so I think there's just a lot of things here that made me feel seen for my quirks, but also some of my shadows that have been really hard for me to like integrate some of those lessons or understandings around them. It really just allowed me to just see myself as myself and decide how to move from that.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I think especially coming from someone that has done so much self work already, to see what human design can bring to the table is very valuable. The other thing that you had also mentioned is the asteroids having a big impact in how you went through structuring your routines and your creative process, maybe even.
Yeah, I feel like it was actually more eye-opening from a not necessarily structure perspective, but how I saw myself or perceived myself in the world. I think there's a moment where like a lot of the asteroids you're talking about were like rebellious, like rule breaker, and I think that was like an identity shift for me because I never would have used those words to describe myself, but I am. Like, right, I think I was like, I'm not Greta Thunberg. I'm not gonna go out there, pick a fence. Like, I'm not gonna do that. Understanding that and understanding that it's through my creativity in which I'm able to bring that perspective and help people see the things that I see that they may not be so privy to, really helped me kind of understand my why. Because I was like, I'm fighting for the people, but like, what around that? And I think really understanding and hearing about the different asteroids and just like the themes of it, I was like, actually, yeah, you're right. Actually, I do have this like fire in me that is not dormant, but is like asking permission to come out. And I think that was a really good opportunity for me to like start seeing my creativity as an opportunity, start, questioning things or shining light to these dark corners that people are really afraid to go to.
I have a quick question. When did you transition from the biology piece of things into brand and working with humans?
I would say actually around college, I was a pre-med major. I was a neuroscience major up until my end of junior year, or like right towards the end of junior year, where it was time to study for the MCAT. And so I was like, I have a huge identity crisis. I'm doing this for my family. I don't want this. I'm signing myself up for 8 years. I can't do this. So I just decided to pivot to anthropology and biology instead, because I think at my school it was like an interdisciplinary, and those two were the things that I already had the most classes done for. I didn't do any physics, but I was able to then realize that I wanted to do this, didn't want to do research, but my friend who was in the business school at my college told me about consulting. So that's kind of, I took a risk. I was like, I have a bio degree, I know nothing about business, and I was able to get a job. And I've just been a strategy consultant since then in healthcare, and then made my way through to health tech, and then landed at Keeps, which is a brand management.
That's really cool. Do you know, maybe not, do you know where you felt that mm-hmm or mm-mm back in the day when you made that switch?
No, when I tell you, literally up until 2020, I was all here, like felt nothing down here. Like I think I just growing up in, I love my upbringing, right? But I think when you have been in a upbringing of just constant change and a lot of noise and a lot of kids and, a lot of uncertainty, and I just had to really operate from my head and not my emotions. I just had to hold everything in. So that's why I think one of the things that Miko told me was like around how my, I was like, oh, I have a lot of emotions. I'm not an emotional being. But it didn't take me until multiple heartbreaks to start being like, something's not right with this head of mine. And I was like, oh, it's the rest of, like, there's more to me than just my head.
Damn,
Yeah, and
that's really cool
Yeah.
though.
Thank you. Well, we live and we learn.
The other part that you mentioned regarding the asteroids of being the rule breaker kind of while we were going through the session, you were also sharing that in your family itself, you were again the driving force and the person that was different to your sibling and to your upbringing and kind of quote unquote breaking the rules in that aspect as well.
Yeah, so it's funny because I grew up that whole perfect daughter trope, I think. So that's why I didn't really identify it because I did follow the rules and I would just twist them. Like the way I saw it was I would just twist them to fit me in that moment. So I'm not, it's like a compromise of like myself holding space for what it is that I want while also being that role that you are expecting of me. So I think that's where I didn't realize. And then I think as I've gotten older, I mean, I grew up in a Muslim household, and then right around me going into college is when I decided to remove it. And that was really difficult because, again, being the oldest daughter and of all women, and my mom being a brand new in America, not sure of the culture and wanting to preserve that as well as the religion with it, there's a lot of fear. That was like a very big hurdle to kind of go through, but I'm really happy to have stood my ground on that. And then same thing with like not necessarily following cultural norms and graduating from college and immediately leaving. I said, I'm out. I got a place in Chicago. I left Atlanta, and that was a lot for, it's been a lot for my mom. I'm so sorry, mom. It's just like, oh, okay, now my daughter is leaving the house unwed in a whole different state that I have never, my mom didn't even know where it was on the map, right? So it's like, that was also another aspect of it. And also, not doing that pre-professional route, right? I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a consultant. And my mom's like, my dad's like, okay, I don't know what that is, but I trust you. Versus my mom's like, I don't know why you're making this so hard on you. Just follow this path. And I was like, nope. And I just veered it off this way. I typically would say that, like, within my family, while I think over the last year, actually, I've always felt very different, like the black sheep of my family. And I realized that that's not necessarily the case anymore. I think that was very healing for me because I felt like an outsider in my home. I think that we all have our thing, or, that's just like, that's just how you operate in this world. And I think it's a beautiful thing that my parents have allowed me to step fully into that person that I know I am and that I don't take BS. Like, that's how they raised at me. Like, sorry, you guys did a good job. But I don't know what to tell you. I don't follow, like, I make my own, I stand my ground. Values was extremely important in all of our every single person in my family. We live our life from that place. So I don't, there's not, we're all rule breakers in our own way. Funny enough, I started to like pick up on that as I've gotten older. But, that shoulder, like the chip I had on my shoulder really softened this past year.
To me, it's always beautiful to see that because I have seen how heavy conditioning can be. And another point that you mentioned when we were going through the human design reading, and this is for me a very, very important key aspect that you've said and shared. And I think people need to hear this because sometimes when you first hear about your design, when you first go through the reading, and we went deeper into your chart by going into the asteroids as well, but there was some resistance in you of when we first were going through the chart. And you then chose to let it sit for a few months, as far as I recall, and then you re-watched it. And after working on yourself and going through all of that, that you then realized that there are aspects that are true. So would you like to share your story on this as well?
Yeah. So when you and I had did this reading, it was right when I had left New York and went back home to Atlanta. Whenever I go back home, that's my like I stay there in my solitude. Like I have to figure me out. And so when we had that conversation, some of the points you brought up, the ones related to me, I felt, oh yeah, like that's interesting. I want to dig in. I think it added a whole nother layer when I went back to New York and I started interacting with people again and seeing my energy and noticing where it was, like just how I felt throughout different interactions. I was like bringing that level of awareness, I think, back now, understanding kind of how it is that I operate in like the best use, or not use, but like the flow, optimal flow of my energy, and not necessarily pushing, or begging. I think one of the things that you had talked about was like begging people to, from a relationship perspective, like, or this aspect of waiting for invitation. I realized I didn't do that. Like I was very much boom, 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 go, 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 send that message, send that text, hang out with this person. And my body just started spazzing. I was like, this is too much. And I think when I reached kind of a point of deep frustration, I think frustration was a big unlock for me, understanding that feeling and knowing that I need to make that change. That's when I realized that I need to bring that level of awareness to other aspects of my life and not just when it's gotten to the point of frustration. And so then that's kind of when I was like, I need to listen to Miko's thing again, because I think there's stuff in there now that I've interacted with the world that I should take account and see how that's transpired. So that's really where the resistance came, was more like I have had that experience of being in, now that like taking that knowledge and seeing it happen out in my reality versus my little like tiny like home, where it's like my cave and I'm like, everything's fine. My mom's bringing me food, so I think that was a big shift for me.
Yeah, this is the stories that we love to hear, where at the beginning it's I'm not sure, and but if you then agree to take the experiment, because it's one thing to have a reading done and to listen to what is said and then to basically put it in a drawer and forget about it. That's one thing you can do, of course, if you want. But the other thing you can do is to really experiment with it and see what felt right, what works, what doesn't work. And then afterwards to go back to the reading you had and to re-listen to it and to re-watch it, because this is really where you're going to see, okay, that is actually true, that is actually correct, that actually works. And I'm sure Celestina also has plenty of stories like this with her experiences of giving readings and hearing exactly that. But the key to everything is really to put it into practice and to give it a shot. And only then will you see how well it works for you.
I wonder though, how many people who have had readings with both of us, Miko, because we bring so much heart into it, if in the moment they're just like, yes, this is for me. And then when they leave our presence, it's like, whoa, that was a lot. So I wonder, Manny, if you felt that too, and I wonder how your day is going to progress having started with both of like so much ego energy in your world this morning. And I wonder how that's going to progress, like one throughout your day, but also I'm sure that has an effect post reading on how you feel too, because you're probably really pumped in the moment when Mika was giving it the first time and you're like,
Yeah.
whoa, so much. Needed your time to like sit with it and then
Yeah.
come back to it too, So it's also like the
Yeah.
energy of the reader that they're bringing to it. Yeah.
I definitely would say, I mean, like just me being me. I love when people talk about me. I love like hearing stuff about me. So I'm like, yes, tell me more, tell me more. But honestly, probably my ADHD, it's just like once the conversation's done, it's out of sight. Not out of sight, out of mind, but it's just like, hmm, okay, anyways, like, and then something else distracts me, or like I kind of go into something else. I'm personally at a point where I'm done learning. I'm so sorry. I'm finished learning. I'm like, I just want to live and experiment now. And so this is so helpful for me to now see it from the third lens of like, okay, now I'm on the third part to see, after also having some time to actually experiment with this, right? I think once I did the second reading or listened to it again, that's in that point in my life was, I mean, like 3 weeks, 3 months ago, maybe, but it was after a season of just purely putting others first instead of me, completely and while also trying to do me also. So it's like I'm giving 100% to my clients, but I'm also giving 100% to myself. Like committed every day to creating content and my creativity and learning. I also had a lot of clients who were a lot. And so it was just no life. I stayed home. I didn't really go out, didn't see friends. I lost so many friends because I just started realizing how unequal the friendships were. And so it was a very isolating, lonely time. And a lot of family things happened in between that also was just like, oh, that's my only connection point to reality is loss or death. So it's just very much stay in this zone, get these done, and you'll be all right. And I think re-listening to that was after that point of just deep frustration and being like, what is my life? Like, I can't keep living like this. So in the last, I would say September and October, in part, I guess we're still in October, these past 2 months, I really allowed myself to sit back and to allow myself to experiment and follow where my heart actually led me and what, actually felt fulfilling and I found myself getting lost in, but also parts in myself where I had to really sit with like some of the whys behind the things that I wanted to do and really get clear on who it is I, not who it is, but more like when it's like feeling this in between stage, you're like, okay, who is this next version of me? Like, who is this new era? Like, I feel this new chapter coming and I want to be thoughtful now and introspective and a little bit more prepared, kind of, right? Get a better sense and footing and understand who it is that I am and what it is I want to do. And so that all these other external noises and options and opportunities don't feel like limited to me because I'm like, those are great, but I'm open, I'll explore, but this is like where my lane is right now. So I think being able to have this opportunity to do it again now is really helpful after those like 2 months of just really committing to experimenting because now it's like I did it. I want to see like what else is there. So it's really helped a lot with structuring my daily life. That's the biggest takeaway for me. Like I didn't realize the amount of pressure I was generating, how much urgency and how everything was just stuck there. I was so focused on my heart and my head. I didn't do anything on my sacral or didn't move any of my I just feel like this has helped me recognize like the flow of energy and kind of understanding emotions as experiences rather than like a singular root or symptom.
That was beautifully said.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
it's
also there's a lot of tears in there. Let me tell y'all, riding that emotional wave by choice was crazy. It was the craziest thing I did to myself. I was like, well, what do you why? You can stop. I was like, nope, we gotta keep riding, keep going.
what I also really liked to hear while you were going through that because we were in constant exchange as well. Well, at least once a week. There was this implementation of new habits or old habits that you may have forgotten about or you didn't practice regularly. And I would love for you to explain a little bit of how that helped, because in my opinion, and in Celestina's opinion as well, it's the reading is one part, and then comes the implementation. But to implement, you also need certain tools. You need to be aware of what is out there, of what you can do to really hone in on this experiment. And that's where opportunity comes in from my side, where I provide a lot of tools to be able to really hone into who you are. But I really loved how you were explaining that because, as you said at the beginning, you were very mind focused and you couldn't connect to your body. And could you just share a little bit about this journey of how you learned to connect and how you're now structuring your day to really hone in on your creativity as well?
I would say that it was a very long process of trial and error. I think the main thing that's been the biggest unlock and honestly biggest blessing in my life was breath work. When it came to meditation, it's like you're going through, in my initial aspect of like, starting to go to therapy after a really bad heartbreak. I was like, all right, I can do the journaling, I could do the affirmations, I'm like so mind oriented that it still felt like something wasn't clicking. And so I tried meditation and I still do meditate for sure. However, there's a part of me where it's like if I don't connect or have my own understanding or bridge to it in discovering breath work, I think that really allowed my mind to focus on something else, like just focus on the rhythm of my body. But something that also clicked for me and also happened right around the same time I started doing Pilates training, teacher training, was understanding the biomechanics behind how our body works and does things and moves and breathes. And so breath work gave me that understanding to realize, hey, I was breathing poorly. Oh my God. Like shoulders, like nothing down here. Like when people would say belly breath or belly laugh, I'm like, nah, I don't feel nothing. What do you mean? So doing the breath work and really starting to connect down to like my sacral and really breathing there and understanding how tense and tight it was, I think really helped me start working through the mechanics of my like breathing process. And I think it's allowed me to use it as a tool now, not as like a I have to calm down and get zen, but more like it's activating. Like I want to be creative. I want to have energy. I want to feel good about myself. It's like my little bestie, like how I describe it. And I have this like one YouTuber, I think his name is Breathe by Sandy. Shout out to him. He's amazing. And he has all of these different scenarios and different like pranayamas that he mixes in and techniques. And it's just so fascinating. And it's a world that I want to dive more into because I think it is the only thing that's with us from life, from birth to death. And I think in being able to like cultivate a very strong connection to my breath, I feel like my sense of inner security and stability has never been as strong as it's been before. Because like regardless of what is out in my reality, this is something they can't take, right? I mean, unless they do it by force and in bad ways, then I hope not. But like, they can't take my breath. It's always been my tool. And then in terms of other elements, I think that I was working with a client actually beginning of the summer, right? When I also was working with Miko, where they have this device called, I can't say their name, but it's a device that gets rid of cramps. And it's like a long rod that you insert that has like a little vibrational tip that should be pressed near your cervix. And a bit about me, like I've always had extremely bad cramps. My doctor can diagnose endometriosis because I have to go and get a sample, but pretty much like in that vein where it's just I was really to the whims of my cycle, like 2 weeks of just like like the week before my period where I have no energy or I want to eat everything and I just never knew why, but I had so much anxiety. And then the week of my period where I was just extremely lethargic and just very much not happy in my body. And so in using that device, while it did help with the cramps, it actually gave me a sensation down there that I've never really experienced before and not in a non-sexual way as well, but I think that level of like connection of like, ooh, what's that? Just like opened up a floodgate of just realizing like how deeply blocked my sacral was and like how it started like my breath work started becoming stronger because I was really able to start now feeling those area that region and my muscles around there and when I would tense up and when to relax and it was just like trauma after traumas after like things that I completely forgot, memories, stories I would tell myself, even ways that I viewed my own pleasure and sexuality, like all just came up to the surface. And it was a really interesting time to have gone through. I think I didn't recognize how much authority figures really played into the pressure I put on myself and this idea of what's right and what's wrong. And I think that understanding that really helped me understand the why behind why I pushed myself to do all these things rather than sit back and relax. So in just recognizing that element of like, oh, you're just pushing yourself because you want to prove yourself or you want to do that because you think that's the right thing to do. It's allowed me to actually pause before I take action, which is a new thing. It's a new thing. And so it's been really nice to be like, oh, wait, you don't want to actually do that. You're just doing that because this is X, Y, and Z. So I think it was a very impactful time to have that kind of awakening of my sacral. Because I think when that kind of started becoming more clear, I started to tap back into parts of myself that I completely forgot about. Like, I love being a diva, I love being extra, and I'm very dramatic. And I'm like, I can't believe how small I made myself. And so, and also how talented I was, and like, in that process of writing, my emotional waves creativity was that big practice of like every day transmuting that pain or that new discovery I just unlocked of myself into something, right? To memorialize that this doesn't have an impact or a hold on me anymore. Like, it's not limiting me anymore, and I've come to terms with that. And so it really not only helped me clear a lot out, it helped me integrate and break a lot of cycles that have been deeply ingrained within me and also within like my family. And I think, especially being one of the first generation Americans here in my culture, like female genital mutilation is very prevalent. And for my line, me and my sisters to be the first that has not gone through that, that's years of deep pain that I had to like viscerally feel from my ancestors, like feel that the pain and the screams and just the fact that they've never had a chance to enjoy pleasure in that sense because it's been so tainted, but it's also been shown as their bodies are mainly just for them, or just for their men, just for them and procreating. It was really nice to reclaim that for myself again and reclaim that for the lines following me.
Thank you so much for sharing that part. I didn't want to mention it because I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it, but I think this is such an important message. And I'm even, while we were explaining it, I could feel your emotions. And for me, it's such an important part of who you are and the process that you've gone through. And especially to release that powerful feminine energy and the creativity that is within you, it's all in the sacral, in the solar plexus. And it really was, in my opinion, one of the catapults where all that energy from earth rushing through you, being able to transmute it and to bring it into your creative practice. I think that's a beautiful part of your journey, and combined with breath work. If we're looking back at your human design chart, we do see that the 1949 channel is the tribal channel. And when you're looking at breath work in combination with human design, an individual that has tribal energy going to the emotional solar plexus, or just the emotional solar plexus being connected through a tribal channel, it's a very, very powerful thing when it comes to breath work. So for me to explain this a little bit, there are different channels and different circuitries that are flowing through the human design chart. There's the tribal circuitry, the individual circuitry, and the collective circuitry. And each one has a specific way to also connect with breath. And breath is the bridge between the physical body and the mind and emotions. So, because it is something that we do with our physical body, but it is so subtle, it's breath. We can't see it, we can't touch it, we can't we can feel air. But this is really something that is so subtle and that connects the emotional and mental plane that is also even more subtle. For a tribal individual, someone that has a lot of tribal energy, doing breath works in small groups, in groups that you feel very connected with friends and with family members, this is very, very, very powerful. For a collective individual, for example, even going to church and singing with a group of people, that is also very powerful because it's also somewhat of a breath work. So there are many different ways that you can do this type of breath work. An individual being is more likely to thrive when they're doing it on their own, the breath work. But with a collective individual, the groups are bigger than with tribal individuals when you do breath work. So it could even be when you're going out and you're trying to petition for a greater cause, when you're chanting these chants, that is also breath work. So this is where you would get a lot of energy from through breath work. That doesn't mean that if you're tribal or collective, you can't do breath work by yourself. But I would recommend trying it with a close, like for you in this case, to do it with people that you really connect with.
That's so funny because I just feel like I have tried so many times to get people to do it with me. I'm like, please just do a breath work with me. Or like if we're on a trip or something and the vibes are off, I'm like, let's do a quick 10-minute breath work, y'all. And everybody's like, no, I will leave you to it. I did one kind of like laughing one with them where it was like breathing in and laughing as you were doing it. And I got so much out of it. And they were like, oh, that was cool. But I was like, I feel so light. It's amazing. So I will continue to badger them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be that would be great for you. Maybe you can find some tribal individuals that are also into it.
I do need community, so yes.
Super weird side note on how to find community or kind of your people. I did this thing last night called Time Left, and it's in like every major city. I don't know, they like found me on the gram and like just bombarded me with all of the ads. But I had dinner with 4 other like super random people. Never have met these people in my life before. And it was really fun. So it must be in New York, but it's called Time
I
Left.
see
It's a
it.
vibe.
Yeah. Oh my
Dude,
God.
it's
Yeah.
a vibe. Highly
They have one
recommend.
here too called 222. But that one's like it has like they match you up with people and you have dinner with them and then you do an event afterwards with like the bigger group. That's been nice, but there's always just like, well, had a great time. Let's exchange numbers or socials, and then it's just, and I'm like, oh, that's where I'm always that person's like, hey, sometimes I'm just like, it would be nice to be sought after. Come hit me up, slide in my DMs.
You
It's
need a
just like,
manifestor in your life to just start it for you.
I know, I do.
Well, Celestina meet Manny, Manny meet Celestina. She's a
Hey,
manifestor.
hey, bestie.
Dude, if I move back to New York, I'm 100% hit you up.
I got you.
A quick little thing that I feel like we should mention is definitely this part here. So, as I kind of teased at the beginning, I said this is the variable part that is changing in Manny's case. And this is how it used to look like with the first birth time, where she had closed taste as her variable when it came to food, or more like when it comes to digesting information. And this was a very interesting part because it did show for her that this was something that she automatically did. She was someone that would purchase the same outfit in different colors. Like once she knows that she likes that, yeah, that's the one that I'm going with. And she also did that with food, as far as I remember, where she's like, okay, this is something that I like, I'm going to go with that one. This changed in her new chart, and let's see how she responds to the new way of digesting things and food as well. It doesn't mean that this doesn't work for her. It's still something that is within her, as you can see, because she's been doing that since she was a little kid. But the actual way that she digests best is through eating foods, or specifically as well drinks. So thirst is a very big thing for you. You need your food to hydrate you. And you prefer, if you are following your intuition properly, you prefer warm things. It doesn't have to be boiling hot, but it's something that would help you digest things. So it can be hot soups, but it can also be just hot dishes instead of going for a smoothie bowl, for example. So, because those are always frozen. But that would help you digest food better. If you're focusing on, you're probably also carrying a water bottle with you everywhere you go. I also do that. So, and I don't have that. I have closed taste. No, I have open taste. There we go. But I also carry a water bottle everywhere I go. But for you, it's actually something with a water bottle, carrying that everywhere you go and really drinking, hydrating well with liquids that are room temperature or warmer, or foods that are room temperature or warmer. This would be best for you.
No, I think this actually hits really strong. I think this probably does trump the other one because I think I always say I wish I could just drink all my meals. Like I always prefer to do something that requires the least amount of biting. Um, I don't know. I feel like if I in the mornings, especially pretty recent, it's like I prefer yogurts, smoothies, oatmeal, more softer food because I find that that nourishes me more when instead of like I used to make a, let's say, an egg sandwich or like an egg and cheese, right? I would feel so heavy and full after that. And I feel that way for a lot of different foods as well when they're very dense. And so I always like am the type of person that will like have a little bit of like meat here and there, but will like go for the salads or go for the like more watery based foods like veggies, things like that. And yeah, I really wish I could just drink every meal. That's so funny. And I definitely would say I do have that feeling of the warm is the best for me. I just love cold. There's nothing hits in like a cold sip of a water bottle or like ice cream. But I know it's so much better for me to do warm. Like it's something I know, and I'm like, we'll get there. That's next season, but we'll get there.
Yeah, so this is for me also what I find interesting when it comes to human design. So, of course, having the exact birthday date and time and place, of course, is very important because when we're going into these deeper levels, things change very quickly. So that's why I always recommend when I'm talking about this to just experiment with it and see how it feels. Does that align with you? Because even if the nurse and or the doctor that were there, they decided to write down the date, the time of birth when the umbilical cord was cut instead of the moment that you actually come out of your mom fully, your birth mom. So that is when the time should be written down, the moment that every single part of you leaves the body of your birth mom, and not when the umbilical cord was cut or something else. So to have a time to really know that this is the exact time that you were born, you would have to have someone that is very much interested in astrology a lot of times, because other than that, things just happen in a hospital scenario. The birth was very complicated and the doctor and nurses, they may have just spent a few minutes more saving your life instead of focusing on writing down the birth time. So there are all kinds of scenarios that can happen. And that's why it's so important to trust your instinct. But as Manny had mentioned at the beginning of the episode, we are in such a busy and externally focused time that this is a very difficult thing to do a lot of times. So human design can really help you to understand, okay, yeah, my inner intuition is this, and this is how I work with it. And then go from there instead of focusing on all the itty bitty details that are in your design. When you're just following your strategy and following your inner authority, everything else falls into place in your chart.
One quick question. I guess going back to that, the thirst and heat or hot part, what's the difference between inner vision, which was my last one, versus smell?
Great question. So think of inner vision as like being able to foresee something like into space, like spatial awareness, right? Like understanding the like visual feng shui of something. Also just like kind of having a sense of design or like a design eye, if that makes sense, versus smell being very in tune to the sense, like sense around you. That could also be like sense recalling memories, sense linked to certain feelings or emotions, things of that nature. Miko and I are both also smell, so together is next level.
So how does that kind of show up? Like, I guess, what does that help kind of, how can I make sense of that? I guess I'm trying to understand, like, with the inner vision, I would never see something visually. I think it's just more conceptualizing it in my head and being able to like inner know, like kind of know how it is and then like do it. I didn't see anything really. Um, I don't know about my sense of smell is very sensitive. I'm extremely sensitive there. So, and
I
that
feel
does
like
bring
it,
back a lot of memories.
I feel like it can present itself in a different ways, but several ways that I've had it explained to me is like being able to like sleuth something out, like sniff out the truth, quote unquote, if you will. And it seems like you kind of do that in your job, right? Like going back into people's depths and helping them kind
Hmm.
of like suss that out. So that's like, I guess the physical manifestation or the
Got
metaphorical
it.
manifestation of it. But like the physical manifestation of it is like being very attuned to smells and scents physically around you.
Oh, hmm.
Yeah.
Good to know. I do love smelling good. It really makes my day. If I leave the house without perfume, I'm like, day ruined.
So
So,
interesting. For me, it's too intense if I wear perfume or if I'm around someone with perfume. Like, I'd rather smell food than perfume.
oh, food is the one that think it's like the one part that makes me throw up. Like when I smell something like food that just, if I'm not hungry and I smell someone cooking, I'm like, no, I gotta get out of the kitchen. So I'm not really much of a cook. Or I'll cook, and as I'm cooking, I smell it, so I get so full, and I just don't cook eat after. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a meal for tomorrow. Yeah,
That is so funny.
it doesn't
It's
happen to
just,
you guys. Is that not normal?
no.
Or not
It
normal, but
just,
like, oh,
it's so interesting the way it presents, though.
it's like a thing in my. It's like a thing with me and my mom, where like when we would cook for a lot of people, we just get so full from just smelling it. It's like we already ate it. Um, so I thought that was like a interesting. Okay.
Actually, so, like, my background is in, like, culinary. I'm also a dietitian, but, like, I worked in restaurants back in the day. And when I would cook, like, professionally, I would not want to eat afterwards. I would also not try anything. I would kind of just, like, intuitively season. So
Oh, same.
maybe there is something to that in the sense of
Uh,
like having to smell it, having to repeat do it for larger groups. Because even when I cook for like friends in large groups, I eat minimally at that kind of occasion. So
yeah.
that's an interesting point.
Yeah, I think you brought up a really good point though around the intuitive seasoning part. I think that's when what tricks my head to think I ate it because I'm blending the ingredients in my head, thinking like, okay, if I do this much, okay, I'm kind of tasting it as I'm doing it, and then I'll do like a in my head, I'm like, okay, I need to add this. So then I think it's just like that element where like my mind is tasting it, my body's not physically tasting it, but it's that experience of tasting the food itself. Then I'm like, not hungry. Um, and then I typically like after a few hours I'll eat with them.
So interesting. Yeah. I mean, for me as well, it's I intuitively put ingredients in it, and it feels like I'm also combining it in my head. And I have visions, though. I have sparks of uh, like if I would have to put chocolate in it, it would just come as a vision, but very very quickly, and then I add it to the dish or something like this. But
You also have a lot of splenic energy, so I wonder how much of that is like the little blips from your spleen coming at you and being like, chocolate, you know?
Me, I don't have any spleen energy. Or you mean the gates defining it?
Yeah, you have some gates in your spleen, no?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. Maybe that. But yeah, I have the 57th gate. So maybe that's the inner intuition part, which is so strong. I also have the 1156. So for me, it's a visual, this is a visual element, the 1156 channel. So it could also be from that aspect. That is defined in my chart. But when it comes to the smell aspect, I found that very funny. Also, when we were doing our retreat where we had 4 individuals with smell in their in their determination, and we were like, okay, this is crazy. We all enjoyed incense. We all were so focused. Like the first thing that was mentioned by all of us was the smell in the place that we entered. It was just, yeah. And then we were walking it through that town, Como, and we followed our scent everywhere. So for you, it's not just the literal smell. It is part of it, and it is, of course, also the sussing out aspect. And important as well is if you can smell someone or if you can't smell someone. Then if you can't, they're out. Theoretically, that's how it should work.
We're removing them? Oh, I didn't know about that. I was going to say.
You don't necessarily, but yeah, it's giving you a sign of, okay, there's something fishy in the state of Denmark.
Interesting. I always took it as if I can smell you and if it's a bad smell or if it's like something about you that I just like, that's like I'm like, oh, I gotta stay away from you. Like, I think something's up there. I'm trying to remember if I smell people. I was like, like I've never made note of that. I always note when someone smells really good or someone's passed by me and I'm like, I know exactly what perfume or cologne they're using. Yeah, I'm trying to also just think about partners too. Like, who did I smell? Not many of them. Maybe that's why they're not here.
I definitely deeply inhale my husband on a regular basis.
Is that what I have to look forward to? Smelling? Oh, oh, oh my God, I'm gonna go around smelling people. I can't wait. I can't. It's so interesting. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, all good. I feel like this is really a very helpful tool. But again, this is something that first of all, it can change very quickly in the chart. And second of all, it really is this is a skill that you need to hone in on. It's a superpower that develops over time. It is not something that if you are completely conditioned still, for everyone listening, and you haven't really worked on yourself, this can throw you off. It may not be correct what you're smelling, and it may not even be very strong within you. So for me, this is something that when I was a teenager, I didn't have a very good smell. I had sinusitis, like chronic sinusitis. I had 7 operations for that, and it was just really, really, really bad and really off. And the more I worked on myself, this is definitely something that I can see that it gets better and better and stronger and stronger. And this is our intuition as well. So this is very helpful when you're working with your inner intuition. Also hone in on this aspect. For you, an added one is touch. So that's why I'm saying that touch is very important for you. It can, as we had mentioned, release emotions. So it can be very explosive when you have someone that cares for you, touch you in the wrong moment, but it can also be very, very healing for you when you're touched at the right time by someone, because it's an emotional release that can take place. So that's why touch is something that you should look out for as well in your environment when you're structuring your home, that things feel good around you, the covers, the pillows and everything around you, that it just feels good to you. Yeah, blankie. Both of them are pulling up blankets if you can't see. Oh, so funny. So yeah.
I think it's so interesting that you brought up the smell having to be developed because that has been one of the most interesting developments that I've noticed within my body over the last few months. And I didn't know how to tell people this, but it felt like my nose started to open up again. I was like, I remember it was just like constant, like draining. And it was like my sinuses were so bad to the point that it was so much pressure on the back of my eye. And then it was like this huge pressure. It was like this whole section that was just inflamed for a really long time that through breath work and like training my nose how to breathe out of my nose and not out of my mouth and using like things like mouth tape, like it really helped open, like get this muscle back up. And it was so interesting because I think that's when I started to realize like, yes, I can smell my perfume because I'm so used to it and I can smell other people's, but I started picking up on other scents throughout my day now. And I'm like, oh, I didn't smell that before. Or like, interesting. And I know that when I'm very tired or I need a break, I get congested. Like that's my first sign. I'm like, oh, slow down. So good to know that that's the link there because I couldn't explain that part of me. And in terms of touch, it is a 50-50 shot. I have no idea what kind of reaction will come out if you touch me. If I deeply care about you and I'm crying or if I'm in a mood and you touch me, I'm going to be surprised just as much as you are. It's super interesting because also like, wow, this is a little deep. Like parents would, use a belt or like a shoe or, and so I had to develop a very like tough exterior because I was like, I'm not gonna let them see me cry, situation. And so I think that closed me up a lot to touch because that's like what I was used to, or being like that afterwards, like it's okay, I love you kind of like manipulation. And you're like, don't do that. And so I've always been very like hands off with people touching me. I've never, for a really long time, I was not a hugger. Don't touch me. Like I will give you a high five at the best. I think as I've been working on myself and me understanding how I am emotionally wired, touch started becoming a little bit of a opening for me, or at least for the people in my life to kind of come into what I'm experiencing. I still am working on like is this the right moment to touch me? Because I don't know. But either way, it's a good cathartic release. A cry, a yell. I'm also like very into how clothes feel on me, like huge. Like on my bed, I have silk sheets. I have to like my comforters have to be like very down nice. Like that's where I splurge. My blankets, I have three different types of blankets, all for different parts of the apartment. Like anything that brings me comfort in which I like kind of roll myself under. And I've always been a blankie person, so like that's my touch. Like this is my little canoe.
Wow, that's nice and interesting to also hear from an emotional being that they don't know when it's being released or which emotion is being released, because we as non-emotional individuals, we don't really have this connection to understanding when to touch an emotional being or what it feels like to be touched when you're very emotional, because I feel like we intuitively know what would feel good and what would not feel good right now. I'm not sure. For me, at least, I have the feeling that I would know, okay, touching me now would end up XYZ, and touching me in another moment would end up in a different way. So it's interesting to know and hear this from an individual being. I don't know if this is also due to your experiences, because that is a very heavy conditioning that you've gone through. And of course, your natural reflex is going to be, okay, first, I don't want to be touched. And that to have to go through and develop that, because it's very difficult to also understand when am I going to receive negatively feeling touch and when am I going to receive positive feeling touches if you're going through this as a child. So this is a very, very big deconditioning process that you have to go through to understand, to first of all, even accept someone touching you is a great step. It's a very big step. And to then understand, okay, this is the reaction I'm going to have in that moment or in this moment, and also by this person and by that person, because that also has an impact. Because as soon as you put two charts together, you become a third person as well. So there's other energies that are playing into it. So maybe someone is going to activate more of the individual stream because you have a gate coming out of the solar plexus from the individual stream. Maybe it's going to be even more tribal energy. Maybe it's going to be more collective energy. So the wave also changes within the dynamic of being with someone else, a friend or family or whoever it may be. So all of that plays a role, and I find that very, very fascinating. So if you're an emotional being and you're listening to that, are you also experiencing this, that you are unsure of which type of emotion is going to be released when you're being very emotional? And yeah, I would love to know that, actually.
I also just wanted to note that I think something particular about how I process and kind of work through my emotions is really in solitude, like vulnerability or going to other people and asking for help, or talking about stuff like, well, there could be moments where like me and my friend could be catching up and then I can just kind of let it all out. But in the moment of me working through something or like experiencing a feeling, I've always been by myself. I haven't really been with a partner, or I don't live with my family. I live in an apartment. Roommate may be home if I'm lucky. If not, it's just me. And so I think a lot of the times in which I could use that, or at least have the opportunity of, really being in tune with what I am feeling, and then seeing how that touch kind of is received in my body, is like I just have to kind of allow people in to see me in that state, which is like another barrier for me to cross because they don't like crying in front of people.
I think it's a mix of both that is important. Having both the solitude to reflect and to understand what it is that triggered this emotion in the first place, and to also allow others to be there when they are there. So just to accept whichever situation we're in, of course, and then when we feel the need to connect with someone, it's great to ask. This is something that we're also often not taught, that it's okay to ask for someone to be there, to hold us, to care for us. And especially with what you've gone through, to even allow yourself to maybe feel that this is something that is coming up, because you were maybe unsure as a child. Okay, can I now ask for support? Can I now ask for help? Can I ask for a hug? Can I ask for this? And also not knowing what their reaction in return would be. It's another challenge that, yeah, we need to first learn to decondition from, to be like, okay, now what do I need and who can I ask? And or do I just need to sit with myself for a moment before I go and ask for a hug or whatever it may be? So I feel like we could talk on forevermore. But Celestina, it's very, very late for her already in Australia. So I feel like we maybe end the episode today, and who knows, maybe we have Manny on for another episode down in the future. But this was really, really beautiful, amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing and being so open about everything and trusting. So thank you.
No, thank you both for taking the time to just kind of walk me through this again, even if it may be the third time. And I always appreciate your perspectives and reframes and just your experience that you bring into this, and how you're able to just break it down in such a practical understanding way without diminishing the importance of some of these aspects and kind of how they play out in my world and in the things that I want to do. So I appreciate you giving me the space to relearn myself again, and for sharing, and having the space for me to share the things that I've shared.
So eloquently said. Thank you. Seriously though, thank you so much for
It's
hanging
like
out with
sick.
us.
I appreciate it. I was like, I'm half asleep. I haven't had caffeine yet. I was like, oh.
And for everyone that is interested in Manny's music, we're going to add part of it to the end of this show. And we're also going to add the link to the description for her SoundCloud mixtape. I don't know how you say it. You don't call it mixtape.
I like it. I like mixtapes. Honestly, it's a mixtape.
Okay. No, it's very good. My mom calls her the next Geta, Manny Geta. And she also says, Manny makes the world go dancing round.
Dance, I definitely want to like make sure that like dance and movement are in the forefront of what I do. You know, the work that I do is very not the funnest or cutest. I always want to end it on a high note. And so movement and getting that energy moving through your body and to just allow yourself to just fully release and dance into like a fun beat is what my MO is. I think as much as I love my family and the upbringing, play was the most important thing that was taught to me during times of uncertainty. And I think while we are doing the work of really figuring out who we are and how best to navigate this world, we can't forget play. So that's what I want to leave this group with. Dance your heart out.
Beautiful.
Amazing. And with that, yes, feel free to get up and dance to the beats that are going to come. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao, guys. Next week.